Welcome to Gracie Gato podcast.
Today I've got Concord City Councilor Stacey Brown and Jon Kiper, the Democratic candidate for New Hampshire governor. We're talking power, accountability, and what's next for the state. Hi, thank you for joining the Gracie Gato podcast. This is Stacey Brown. She's the city councilor of Ward 5 in Concord. Say hello.
Hi, Gracie.
Thank you for joining me. We're having coffee talk.
Yes, I do.
Yes, I do. Okay, so thank you for joining me today. For those who don't know you, is Stacey Brown like outside of politics?
I'm a mom, and I'm one of 6 kids in my family. I'm
No way.
kind of a flinty granite stater. I like to get out. I like hiking. I like the outdoors. Yeah.
Who can't? I mean, I'm not even really an outdoorsy girl, but like since I've been here, it's like, oh, look at trees, look at bushes, and oh my
It's good
God,
for you. It's good for you.
birds are different colors here. All we get are pigeons from LA. They're all gray pigeons. Okay, so what made you run for office in the first place? Like, what were you trying to change? Like,
So I
what was
had
the
been
catalyst?
watching city council for about 2 years. My
Mhm.
daughter was 9, and she wanted to change the ordinance so that we could have chickens. And, for about 2 years, she was attending meetings and I was taking her there, and I was just watching what city council was doing. And
Yeah.
when I found out that my city councilor wasn't running, I was like, okay, I'd like
Yeah.
to step in. I've seen what they've been doing, what they talk about.
Mhm.
I'd like to be at the table. I'd like to be making decisions.
Mhm. And what made like when did you realize, oh, Concord politics isn't what I thought it was going to be? Like, when did that moment happen for you?
I think it was when, well, I had been in the military.
Mhm.
I'm familiar with working with people from different backgrounds, different political focuses. So, I did not expect that we were all going to be friends, but I thought that we were all focused on taking care of taxpayers. So when other counselors were not interested in talking about taxpayer dollars, like following where the money's going,
Mhm.
that's when I thought, this is a little bit different.
Like,
Yeah.
what? Yeah. So let's
Mhm.
get into that. So you had a little bit of a problem back in December. There was some ruckus happening at the city councilors meeting. And
Yeah.
mind you, for the audience, that these things are boring as heck, right? Like, you just bring a pillow and a blanket. You could just zone out, find your zen. But like some real like stuff went down. So tell us all about it.
Yeah, so I had been following these capital reserve accounts.
Okay.
Money's tight, so you got to
Yeah.
look at our saving, using your savings wisely, watching your spending. And I went through some more training just so I could ask better questions and understand how my policy decisions are reflected in someone's tax bill,
Right.
so that I could make better decisions as well. So I was looking at strange withdrawals around these capital reserve accounts. And from the trainings I received, I learned that these reserve accounts are for a specific purpose. It's like a specific savings account that you move taxpayer dollars in. And the governing body, the city council, has to approve withdrawals. And then it gets the next control is the trustees of the trust funds.
Hmm.
They then make sure that the withdrawal matches the purpose of the account before they release the funds.
Hmm.
So I was seeing withdrawals that I hadn't approved. And I didn't remember approving. And I had attended a trustees meeting and I asked them, aren't you going to verify withdrawals? And one of the trustees said, we've never done that. And I was like, oh, this is curious. And then at the December council meeting, I asked, we received this report. So there's an annual report that goes to the Department of Revenue Administration, called an MS-9, that reflects the full year of additions and withdrawals from
Okay.
investments and these capital reserves. And
what's that called again?
It's called an MS-9.
Okay.
Yep. And it includes investments and capital reserves.
That's good for our audience to know so they can
Yes.
investigate their own elected
Yes.
officials. Yes.
Absolutely. And you can find the Trustees of Trust Funds handbook on the DOJ website. And that's really important. And I also found out that our trustees of trust funds have received no training, even though
Ooh.
there's lots of training available. So I was like,
Mm.
oh, this is curious, because from reading that trustees handbook, they're guilty of a misdemeanor if if money is withdrawn and it's not for the purpose that it was put in there. So just some questions, and I'm like, and I was really surprised that the counselors who've been on the longest and who are on the Fiscal Policy Advisory Committee weren't interested in talking about it. So I was like, ooh, what's going on? And in
Ooh.
December, I asked, because the report that was going to the Department of Revenue Administration was late, and I was asking about that, and I wanted to ask about withdrawals that were listed.
Yeah.
And the mayor, I asked one question, and then the mayor kind of sent the treasurer, tax collector, and finance director away, and another at-large counselor, Amanda Grady Sexton, interrupted to say, accept the report. And another
Ah,
counselor seconded it. And all of a sudden there was a vote, aye. And the mayor says, moving on. And I'm like, whoa, I have two more. And I kept saying, I have two more questions. I have two more questions.
right.
And the mayor was like, we're moving on. And I said, 100,000 was withdrawn from this account. I want to know why. And he said, we're moving on. And I was like,
Ooh.
what is happening? This doesn't make sense.
Was that a recorded video?
Yes.
You know what?
Yes.
I'm gonna grab that.
Thank you so much. Nice to meet you.
Your Honor, I have two more questions.
To approve the item?
I have two
I have
more
a motion to
questions.
approve. Do I have a second? Moved and seconded. All in favor, please.
Your
signify
Honor,
by
I have
saying
two more
aye.
questions about this item.
Aye.
All right.
Your Honor, I had
That
two
takes
more
us to
questions.
item 25. Thank you, Counselor.
I was not done, Your Honor. I had two more questions about this.
We've approved it, Counselor.
Your Honor, I was in the middle of asking a question about this. 100,000 came out of the Recreation Reserve between July 1st and October 31st. I would like to know where that went.
We're moving on, Counselor. Thank you.
Those are taxpayer dollars.
Madam City Clerk, item 25.
Item 25 was pulled.
Yep. That was really surprising because, there are a number of counselors who are on the Fiscal Policy Advisory Committee that I thought they would want to know too. And I had a conversation with Counselor Grady Sexton afterwards, and I asked her, why did you interrupt me?
For the sake of time, let's just call her AGS from now on.
Okay.
Because it's so
AGS.
obnoxious for three names.
So I asked
AGS.
I asked her, why'd you interrupt me?
Yeah.
And she said, oh, well, you needed to make a motion. And I pointed out, no, I didn't, because a consent agenda item, when you pull it, it means you want to talk about it. You have more questions, or you want the public to be aware. And I felt like it was important that the public was aware there were withdrawals from these taxpayer funds, and that we needed answers. So she said she would help me. I said, I want to know, there were other withdrawals that I didn't remember approving at all. And she said, oh yeah, okay, yeah, I'll help look into it. That didn't happen. And then after that meeting, I had asked to be on the Fiscal Policy Advisory Committee meeting. And not only was I not put on that committee, I was yanked off almost all my other committees.
Wow,
I felt like, why am I being punished? This
is like mean girl behavior.
Yeah. So I was pulled off energy and environment, parking, community development, and transportation policy. So
and New Hampshire's Regina George strikes again. Okay.
It was just strange. And then at our orientation, the city manager in January said, okay, all counselors, please talk to department heads when you have questions. He said, but you, Counselor Brown, you're only talking to me. And I was like, okay, well, maybe this means I'm going to get all my questions answered.
Okay.
And no, nope. It's just harder now. And I was like, that's really strange.
Yeah.
And then in January, our January meeting, we were changing these reserve accounts. So the reserve accounts, they're governed. You have to be very specific about why you're creating them.
Right.
So they were changing the description of these reserve accounts. So they were very broad. So the one account I'd been watching, the recreation reserve, was for a specific building. And it even had a specific project number 443. So they were saying, well, now instead of just being for that building, it's going to be for anything having to do with recreation. They were just kind of watering it down. And I thought was very strange because we have real needs.
Yeah.
Like one of the
Serious.
reserve funds was fire apparatus replacement, which, for a fire truck. And instead of putting money into that reserve fund for a fire truck, we put $3.5 million into this recreation reserve. And there's only 749,000 in it now. And I can't tell if any of it has gone towards that specific project. So that's what I'm trying to find. Like, where did the money go? And in fact, we bonded a fire truck for 1.8 million. And when we could have been saving money into this reserve account. And as a result, we're going to be paying another 400,000 in interest. So we've been putting money into this, and now it's officially like
so much for fiscal responsibility. Isn't that like a running slogan?
Yeah, and I was like, I'm not okay with this. This is, and then after we watered down the titles, and I opposed it. We voted to put $2 million more into these watered down accounts, and I was like, for why? We have a homeless issue, we have poverty, racism, we have all kinds of issues. And that was just really surprising. The pushback on that was very surprising. And then I pulled another item from consent. And that was because they wanted to impose term limits on a committee. And I brought up and I said, well, this is great. We're putting term limits on our committees. I said, but we should follow the same guidelines. If we expect committee members to attend almost all the meetings, we should too. And I pointed out that we have counselors. So there's a counselor who's an at-large counselor who attended 2 out of 10 meetings, and he's on fiscal policy. And he was put back. He has an attendance rate of 18% of attending the committees he's on. So I questioned, why are we putting people on committees if they're not attending them? And then another committee that I said, even the chair of these committees, now Counselor AGS, Amanda Grady Saxton, is the chair of the Public Safety Board.
Oh my God.
They went a full year with no meetings. And I thought, if you're the chair of a committee, you should be holding regular meetings. About 30% of our budget, the city budget, goes towards public safety. So why aren't they meeting more frequently? And when, you don't have meetings, that means the public can't attend, can't raise issues. And we just approved a new police station for like $48 million in total. And that's before interest. And they didn't even talk about it, or they didn't even have a public hearing about that building until after the council had reviewed it. So, it's just kind of really strange. Why are certain counselors being put as the chair of committees and they're not holding meetings? And some counselors are put on committees and they're just not attending, when other counselors who are interested and are able. I have a 91% attendance rate for my committees. I've never missed a city council meeting. So
that's why you're problematic.
I mean, I really, I see myself as I represent the people of Ward 5, almost 4,400 people. They voted for me. I represent their interests. I should raise concerns, make them aware of how their money is being spent. Some interesting things are happening in Concord.
Thank you so much. I'm going to wrap it up here. Thank you so much for joining me. You're actually my first guest. So
thank you. Thank you.
Yes. So Godspeed, and I hope everything goes well. And we're going to keep covering the story. We're going to have you on again.
Awesome. I would love to share more.
Okay. And
my constituents are supportive. So that's great. They like that I'm asking these questions.
That's awesome. And this comes from the rock and roll DJ in me. Who is your favorite band right now that you're listening to?
Oh man. Oh gosh. I can't. Who do I run to? I'm trying to think who I run
Yeah,
to.
that's a great one because I run too, and I do a spin class here at my house.
Right.
Like,
God.
who's on that list?
Oh
Is
my
it is it
God. I
is it
have a
too rowdy? Is it too rowdy for us to know? Like, are you
I
listening to
don't
like
know. I'm so
gangster
terrible
rap?
with my music because I like, my husband will, oh, you know who I love? Rihanna. I love
Rihanna.
Rihanna.
Yeah.
She, I think is it Umbrella where she's talking about, making an oath and standing by it. And I was like, yeah. So I'm running and I'm listening. I'm like, yes, yes, that's my
Rock
yeah.
on. All right. Talk to you later. Thank you,
Thanks.
Stacey. Bye-bye.
Bye.
And next up, we have Jon Kiper. Hello, hello. Welcome to the Gracie Gato podcast. We have Jon Kiper in studio. Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Doing great. How are you?
I'm good.
All right, John. So we got to ask the question. Okay, Jon Kiper, welcome. And before we get into politics, we're doing the human question check first, just to make sure you got a bleeding pulse, as we never know what you're going to get in New Hampshire.
That's
Uh,
fair.
because I need to know what I'm dealing with or who we are dealing with in this state. So, how are you doing, like, actually?
It varies day to day, but I try to enjoy myself as much as possible, and I do really enjoy running for governor. I like talking to people about politics in New Hampshire, and I like driving, and if you don't mind doing those two things, it's not a bad gig. I wish
Oh,
it paid more, but my girlfriend wishes it paid more, but it's fun. I do really enjoy it. I like talking about politics, and frankly, I find it's a lot easier to be part of the solution than on the sidelines complaining about the problems. And so I find what I'm doing a lot less frustrating than what a lot of other people are doing because you can go to protests and you can, boycott Amazon and all these other things, but to really, get involved, you got to run for office. Voting is good too. Voting is great,
mhm.
but running for office and voting are the two things that we have a right to do. And I would encourage more people to do it. I was on the town council before I ran for governor, and I had a lot of, uh, you know, affected some change there that was positive. And
Mhm.
so there's a lot to be said for getting involved in politics, even if you're not going to win, just to move the conversation along, to hold people accountable. And that's really, what my motivation is.
Now, when you're not being Jon Kiper on the internet, what do you enjoy doing on a normal day?
I like hanging out with my son. He's 9. We play music together. We got a little band. He plays the drums. I play the guitar.
What do you
I
guys
go
play?
a lot of rock and roll, kind of gritty
Yeah.
indie rock, I guess. I don't know. I
That's
don't even
all.
know the genres anymore.
Yeah, they're all kind of meshed together. They're all lumped into rock and roll now. So
Yeah,
it is what it is. So who is your favorite rock band of all time? Like, what's on Jon Kiper's playlist?
you know, um, I listen to a lot of Radiohead. I love Pink Floyd. I wish classic rock had not killed Pink Floyd by playing it literally every hour. It seems
I know.
like, you know what I mean?
What's
I had to not listen to some of their music for a little while just to like enjoy it again, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I had to go like on a 20-year break before I could enjoy Nirvana again.
Yeah,
Yeah,
totally, totally. I
it
mean,
was just like,
I love Nirvana Unplugged. It's kind of funny because I have a hard time listening to some of their every once in a while I'll put on the headphones and just like listen to Nevermind or something to like really just get the 90s nostalgia kick.
yeah, yeah.
But it's so funny. My son is obsessed with putting on music while he's showering, and it's usually Green Day, but I had him listen to Nirvana Unplugged the other couple weeks ago, and he came out of the shower and he was like, "That was terrible, Dad. That was terrible." I was like,
Gasp!
"You're not ready. You're too young. You're
You're
not ready."
how old
He's
was he? 12?
he's a 9. 9.
9. Yeah, they always tell you the truth at 9, though.
I know.
I know.
Yeah.
I don't ask my son, anything about, do I look fat today? No, just don't
No,
ask. Just
no,
don't
no.
ask.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so last question. What is your Dunkin' order? Go.
You know what? I'm kind of over Dunkin' Donuts. I usually go to a local cafe called Crack Skills when I'm getting coffee. if I have to go to Dunkin' Donuts, honestly, I'm a pretty big fan of just like a medium black hazelnut. I don't love their iced coffee. It's kind of bitter. It's funny. I don't know. I drank Dunkin' Donuts for years, and then at one point I was in there and I was like, I don't love this coffee. I like my local cafe a lot better. I do not. I do occasionally go in for a good breakfast sandwich. I'll tell you that. I frequently do that when I'm on the road.
Yes. Okay, so I got to ask the question that's just sitting in the room like a wet boot by the door, you know what I'm saying?
Sure.
So, your own party isn't rocking with you. Now, what's going on with that? What's going on with that?
So I think people need to know like a little bit of history.
Mhm.
That being when I ran in 2024, for governor. So this is my second run. People should know that. That's important.
Mhm.
Um, I was telling people things they didn't want to hear. The first thing that I started telling people was, "Hey, Joe Biden is too old to be running for president again."
Mhm.
I was interviewed after the debate, that terrible debate on WMUR, and I said, I think he can't last another 4 years. Like we got to do something.
Yeah.
And the party, it was so funny. The next event I was at, the chairman, Ray Buckley, said, all these bedwetters who think, Joe Biden's too old need to shut up or whatever. And this one woman said, suck it up, Buttercup. I forget who it was that said it. Someone affiliated with the party said that, Joe Biden's a candidate and whatever. And I'm like, hey, I'm just kind of calling him like I see him. I'm not going to lie to people and say like the president is in good shape right now. And so they didn't like that. And then, of course, they all got on board once he dropped out.
Mhm.
And then the other thing that they really did not like was during the WMUR debate, I said straight up, Joyce Craig is going to lose to Kelly Ayotte because of homelessness in Manchester, and Cindy Warmington is going to lose because of her role working as a lobbyist for Purdue Pharma, maker of OxyContin. I said that, and they were just not happy hearing
Wow.
what was the truth. And I said Joyce Craig's going to lose. I actually was kind and said it would be close. I said, oh, it'll be like 3 or 4 points. She lost by almost 10 points. It was about
Mhm.
9.5 points. So she got destroyed.
Mhm.
And it was kind of, I mean, this is just, it happened. But Kelly Ayotte actually cut the clip of me saying that and used it in one of her promotional videos, which I have not gotten a check for, I will say.
Okay, and no screenshots, right?
Yeah. So they didn't like, that. And then, I mean, and then the other thing is in February,
Mhm.
I was talking to my friend Karishma Manzoora, who's running for Senate,
Mhm.
and she had gotten on the Democratic committee, the Rules Committee.
Oh, okay.
And she said, hey, you should run for some position in the party. You just ran for governor and you did pretty well for how much money you spent. And
Mhm.
she was like, you should run for like vice chair or something like that. And I said, well, who's running against Ray? Because I was assuming he was going to retire after that abysmal,
Mm.
performance. And she said, oh, well, no one's running against Ray. And I said, well, that's a little ridiculous. Like, none of you guys are going to run against him. Like, there's no one in the entire party that has a problem with what's going on right now with our losing for the last decade plus under
Yeah.
his leadership. And I said, no, that's not going to happen. So I said, I will run for chair. And at the time, I didn't think anyone else was running, like I said. So
Mhm.
we had some Zoom meetings, and I just said what everyone was thinking out loud. I just laid into Ray hardcore,
Whoops.
literally
Whoops.
like,
Would you
I
tell
didn't
him?
even know it at the time, but I guess,
Just so you
afraid.
know, audience, he's talking about New Hampshire Democratic Chairman Ray Buckley.
Yeah. So
So,
I didn't even realize it at the time, but I was really heated, and literally people that were in, so it was like 100 or so people in this Zoom meeting, and people
mhm.
afterwards were like, dude, you were like screaming into the computer. And I was like, this is my level of frustration, folks. If you're not screaming into your computer, I don't know what to tell you about politics
Right.
in New Hampshire. Like, I do not understand that when people are like, oh, I don't know why you're so upset. I'm like, look around, guys. We're getting screwed here. So after that, and then what ended up happening was another guy named Matt Stover, who also didn't realize I was running. He ran as well, and he had been a chair of one of the committees, and so he had a little bit more like connection with the party than I did.
Mhm.
And so I said, "Hey, I think Matt's got a better resume for this job." And to be frank, I didn't really want the job. I mean, I was going to do it, but I just didn't think Ray should have it, and I wanted to have this again accountability, have
Yeah.
this conversation about what had gone wrong, in hopes that we could do
What
something
is
right.
going on? Ray Buckley had blocked me on X, and now I'm back on again. I don't know what's going on with that dude. Hey Ray, what
It,
happened? Did we break up?
yeah,
And it kind of
I,
made me feel like a one night stand who was just like, uh, what? It
yeah.
should be a political party shouldn't feel that way. So, do you feel like you're running with the Democratic Party or you're running against the Democratic Party?
It definitely feels like I'm running against the establishment and the Republicans. And I will say one thing, when I was running as an independent,
Hmm.
I I realized that one of the big things that the Democratic Party has to offer is just the infrastructure of town and county meetings. So there's some group of people meeting every month all over New Hampshire.
Yeah.
And that just does not exist on the independent side. There is no groups of independent voters getting together. So I was like, my argument is with the DNC and the NHDP. It's not with the rank and file Democrats. Like they're good people that
Right,
want to
right. The
support good
voters, we're not
candidates.
talking, when we say Democrats, we're not saying all Democrats across the board. We're talking about Democratic leadership in New Hampshire,
Yes,
period.
very specific group of
Very
people, like
specific
like
group
like
that,
12 or so people, like not a lot of people we're talking about. So the rank and file Democrats are great people and they want good candidates to fight for. And the
mhm,
party kind of keeps giving them bad candidates, and they're fighting for those people just as hard because they're loyal to the party.
like Chris
Um,
Pappas.
yeah, so I mean, this is kind of the issue where I felt after my campaign,
Mhm,
and I've seen this a lot around the country, is primaries is where, progressive candidates go to die. And it's
mhm.
not really the fault of the party. It's that too many young people don't vote in primaries, and too many people just aren't paying attention. And
Mhm.
and I mean, we only had 100,000 votes in the primary for the last Democratic governor race.
So if the Democratic machine won't back you, so no endorsements, no donor train, no little insider brunches with the matching blazers. I mean, how do you plan to win anyway? Like,
Yeah, so I still have, people that in the party that are supporting me.
mhm,
And there's a lot of people that are sitting on the fence thinking Cindy Warmington or someone else is going to run. I think every week that goes by that someone else doesn't run is a week that it's more likely I'll be the only one there.
mhm,
Now, it's important to note we don't actually file, no one files for governor until June 12th, I think it is this year,
mhm.
is the deadline. So a lot of things could happen between now and then. I've floated the possibility of running as an independent Democrat
Yeah.
and just skipping the primary, just getting the votes to be on sorry, not the votes, the signatures to be on the ballot in the general election. But frankly, let's be honest, it's a two-party system. You got to pick a team. It sucks.
It sucks.
And I wish that I could change that, and I would love to be part of that. But to me, it's just a calculation of, which scenario is the most likely where I end up governor.
Hmm.
And so that calculation changes literally week to week for me. And we're constantly sort of asking ourselves, is this, and at a certain point, a couple days ago, I was doing the math just kind of all the things that had happened since I became a Democrat. I was kind of doing the math, the pros and cons, and I was like, it's not that they're just not supporting me, they're actively trying to sabotage my campaign, which
That's messed up.
is like, I don't get it. They have no other candidate. They
I
can't find a candidate. Like,
I feel like
vote
I
with
am
that.
the child of divorced parents between the Republicans and the
A
Democrats.
100%.
It's
Yes.
like mom, dad, stop fighting.
Well, and
So,
there's this attitude like from both sides, and it's like, hey, from the Republicans, it's like, hey, what are you going to do? Like, leave us and go join those purple-headed freaks in the Democratic Party? And the Democrats are like, what are you going to do? Leave us and join those neo-Nazis on the other side? And it's like you're, I feel like an abused, like we're in an abusive relationship that we can't get out of,
it's very
and
toxic. And
it is.
yeah. So can you, what is your plan to build a real campaign without the without the gatekeepers? Like, what is the blueprint?
It's definitely been done before.
Mhm.
I think, and this is a conversation I've had with people that are running for Senate. I believe it was Carol Shea Porter, who was one of our congressional representatives, she was an outsider that was not blessed by the party. So it has been done in
Hmm.
recent years. It's definitely harder, but it's not impossible.
Hmm.
And the thing about it that's kind of cracks me up is all of this is
Hmm.
proof to me, to the independent voters, that I'm the guy. You know
You
what I
are
mean?
the guy.
They
You
they
are the
reject, like,
guy.
the fact the Democratic establishment is rejecting me is, to me, great. That's great.
Yeah.
It shows that I'm not part of this machine, that I'm not beholden to them, and that's why they don't like me, because I frankly think they don't like hearing the phrase tax the rich. I think that scares them. I think they're afraid it's going to scare their donors. And I think that's really the big issue, although they try to make it seem like it's these other things. I really think it comes down to that they don't want to support economic reforms that we desperately need in this country.
That's uh, yes, you have my vote. Jon Kiper, you have
Thank
my
you.
vote. So let's talk. I have a couple of questions here from people who want to hear from you.
Sure.
So, the Democratic establishment in New Hampshire isn't supporting you at all. Why? We just answered that question. Um, are you running with the party? Are you running against a party? We did that. If the New Hampshire Dems won't back you, blah, blah, blah. Hold on, where is it? I had a question about guns. And now, do you think the Democratic Party should actively invite gun owners and gun enthusiasts into the party, or has that ship sailed?
I 100% do. I 100% think that we should. One of the benefits of owning a restaurant as a politician is that I've spent the last decade talking to all sorts of people, all sorts of people, Democrats, Republicans, libertarians, socialists, communists, independents, whatever.
Yeah.
And I will tell you that there is not a lot of people, but there is a chunk of people in New Hampshire who align with Democrats on almost every issue except for gun ownership.
Hmm.
And that issue to them is the most important one. It's a primary voting behavior or motivator. And so I'm a gun owner. I've done the hunter safety course. I've never gone hunting, but I did it so that I could, safely know how to manage my weapon, my guns, my firearm.
Yes.
And I think that it's something I wish more people would look at the facts about.
Yeah.
For instance, the last campaign, Joyce Craig and Cindy Ormington both pushed a AR-15 automatic weapon ban.
Okay.
Now, this was politically just not a well-informed decision. And they did it
Mm.
because of funding that they got, at least that's what I'm guessing. And the reason why it was a poor decision is New Hampshire's Senate map is very gerrymandered for the Republican sake. So there's no world in which you're going to get any sort of gun ban past the Senate. And by advocating for something that you can't get done, all you're doing is losing independent voters. Now,
Can I'm
sorry,
sorry.
yeah,
Yeah, can Democrats support the Second Amendment and public safety without sounding fake?
I think we have to. If you look at the numbers, since 2020, the people buying firearms, the biggest demographics are minorities, women, and people in the LGBTQ community.
Hmm.
So leftists, people on the left are catching up. We're not nearly at the gun ownership rates of people on the right, but I think everyone's realizing, like, hey, Mike, like, and this is a true story. This happened in our town.
Hmm.
Probably, I think before the 2020, maybe 2019. There's a guy who I know from town. I've sat next to him at the bar, and on our town Facebook page, he was saying, something to the extent of, like, we're not going to do violence unless the Democrats try to institute socialism.
Mm.
And I'm like, man, I know you. Like, what are you talking about? Like, this is
Right?
crazy.
Yeah,
And
it's
like the
crazy
idea
town.
that you would want to disarm now, like, is to me madness. And I think statistically, people need to look at some facts. The
But what?
vast majority of gun violence is handguns.
Mhm.
So banning AR-15s is actually going to make almost zero impact on gun violence statistics.
Mhm.
And I think that's just an important fact for people to know.
Where's your red line? What gun restrictions would you refuse to support, even if your party leaders pushed it?
It would really depend on the bill. It would really
Mhm.
depend on the bill. It's hard to say without looking at, yeah, the actual wording and the impacts. I do understand the concerns, for sure.
Yeah.
I don't want to dismiss the fact that gun violence is an issue in our country. It's a huge issue. I would say New Hampshire, by far, is a very safe state. We
Hmm.
just do not have the issues that they have in some other places, and frankly, a lot of our gun laws work really well. I had a relative who went to a gun shop
Hmm.
to buy a gun, and he was not mentally well, and they refused to sell him the weapon.
Hmm.
Which I found very reassuring.
Hmm.
That said, I've heard stories of other people that probably should not own firearms that are owning them, who are,
Hmm.
maybe not in a mental state to have that.
Right.
But this is a thing that I thought of many years ago, and this is what we have to be careful of, is when we start creating red flag laws, we need to be very careful that administration like the Trump administration doesn't
Right.
say, "Hey, being a Democrat is a mental illness, and we're going to take their guns."
Well, TDS is a real thing, but it can go the other way too, like
Yeah,
the other way.
totally. Yeah,
So,
agreed.
okay, so let's take it back a bit, and I've noticed your online presence is intense. Like you are on it. You're on your social media. So if you become governor, do you change? Well, if you become governor, do you change your tone, or do you think your style is part of the leadership? Like, are you
Hmm.
still gonna be a like if you become governor, if
Yeah,
you yeah.
I think that the important part of social media is one, it's free.
Hmm.
Two, it's where the people are
Yes.
at, especially the young people.
Yes.
Um, so I will continue to use my social media platform to highlight issues in the legislature that I think people need to know about. The governor in New Hampshire doesn't have a ton of power. People don't realize this, but we have the weakest governor in the country, I've been told, in terms of power.
Hmm.
But one place that the governor has, strength is just the bully pulpit and being able to bring issues to the forefront of the discussion. And I
Gotcha.
will do that through social media and through the regular, legacy media by just highlighting legislation that I want to get passed, and highlighting legislation that I plan on vetoing, and when we need support from the public, trying to get people involved at a higher level.
Okay, and how do you take criticism without escalating or retaliating?
Oh, it's so hard. It's really hard. I I I have a very hard time sometimes
Mhm.
not responding the way that I want to respond. I've been trying to get better at it. I still occasionally will give a snide reply to someone on social media. I try not to because everyone's a potential voter.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
but it is really hard, especially like when I mean one of the things that drives me absolutely nuts, it happens like at least once a week. I'll put out a video saying something very basic like, "Hey, tax the rich to pay for housing and education." And
Hmm.
someone will come in the comments and go, "Well, you didn't talk about what your policies are. Like, what are you talking about? I don't know anything about you." And it's like, I have hundreds of videos on here. I have a podcast. I have, there are so many. I have a website. If you just did
Go
two
to the
minutes,
link. Go
yeah,
to the
I
link.
know. If you spend 2 minutes of doing work, we wouldn't have to have this conversation.
What's the
And it's just
Reader's
like,
Digest version of what you're for?
me? All right. So I think that the biggest issue in our country and in our state is inequality. And it's
Hmm.
literally ripping our country apart. It's destroying the middle class. It's destabilizing the country. And the only way to solve that is to tax the rich and to use that money to fund education and housing. And in a practical way, if we did that in New Hampshire, it would lower property taxes as well.
Okay, in 4 years, what do you want New Hampshire to feel like for regular people?
So it's going to be really hard to
Hmm.
bring down housing costs. We need to build a lot of housing units, and we need cooperation from the federal government that we may not get. But my goal is by the end of my first term, I think the lowest hanging fruit that we will definitely pursue will be legalizing cannabis, using the revenue from that to build affordable housing through a affordable housing loan fund. That's really, I think, something that we have to do. I would like to see more. How can we work with nonprofits to build more cooperative housing? More ADUs, accessory dwelling units, that
Yes.
will expand housing. How can we, you know, just get the housing that we need in the places that we need it and the type of housing that people want.
Right.
There's a lot of formulas out there, and we just got to see what's going to work in each community. New Hampshire has a strong tradition of local control that we have to respect. But local control can't mean excluding, you know, undesirable renters from a community or saying that we're not going to build any more housing. It's just really, it's in the long term going to be very detrimental to these communities if we do not address housing and the way that we fund education.
Gotcha. Um, okay. So name one thing the New Hampshire Democratic Party is doing right now that is hurting its own future.
Oh, just one. Uh,
Yes.
Wait, was
Call
that the New Hampshire Democratic Party or the national, or was it just
No, New
Democratic Party?
Hampshire.
Okay. Um, the biggest issue is just not speaking to a wide enough group of people, frankly, is to that they don't speak to the independent voters and they don't make their they make this the arguments are always very self-serving. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? You should support abortion because it's a woman's right. Well, all the people that support abortion are already on the Democratic side. So what's the argument? And the way I frame it in my head is, how do I convince my conservative uncle who voted for Donald Trump to vote for me? And the way and when I talk about abortion, I don't talk about abortion. He's religious. He doesn't believe in abortion. What I talk about is medical freedom and privacy and the
Yes.
fact that
Amen.
if they're banning abortion for religious reasons, they could very equally, or on the same lines, ban
Hmm.
Viagra, you
Yeah.
know? And a lot of old men like Viagra, and it really has no medical, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Medical purpose.
Oh, women like Viagra too.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think everyone likes Viagra. But so that's really the where I'm trying to come from is make the argument for the independent leaning conservative, not the Democrat. And also almost every issue, not quite everyone, but most issues can be brought down to an economic level, and that's where the independent voters are coming from. So rather than saying we shouldn't tolerate homelessness because it's inhumane, it should be we shouldn't tolerate homelessness because it's far more expensive to have homeless people on the street than it is to just have affordable housing. And
True.
so it's always got to be the economic argument. Why are we going to limit PFAS or chemicals in the environment?
Yeah.
Because in the long term, it's going to cause medical problems that are going to cost us a lot of money. It's always got to be about the economics and the money.
John, why are you doing all this? Like, why are you running for governor? It is like, it's so invasive, especially to your private life. You have children, you have your girlfriend, you have your whole life. Like, this
Yeah.
is very disruptive. What does your significant other say about all this?
It's kind of funny. We go back and forth. Some days she's just
Yeah.
like, dude, just give up, just drop out. And then other days she's like,
Hmm.
which is loving it. I mean, you have bad days, you have good days. Ultimately, I just can't sit on the sideline. I can't sit on the sideline banging my head against the wall, screaming at the TV about these issues anymore. And fundamentally, this came to a head with my restaurant where our taxes are really high because of the school.
Hmm.
So we can't build any more parking. My building was built in 1835. There's no parking here in my end of town. There's no
Hmm.
money to build parking. My employees' rent kept going up. I kept having to raise the prices because of it. I couldn't find employees because they couldn't afford to live in my town anymore. So all of these issues got to this point where I was like, I'm trying really hard to keep my business afloat, and it's like the government is the obstacle. The
Yeah.
government shouldn't be the obstacle. The government should
No,
be
I've experienced
helping.
that millions. Oh my God, we've all experienced the yeah, that
So
pushback.
we're living in this economy that benefits a small group of wealthy people, and they have convinced a small group or a larger group of not wealthy people that
Hmm.
it's good for them too, and it's not. And that's really the hardest part about this is explaining to people like, hey, you're getting screwed. The Republicans are screwing you, and they're going to screw you more and more and more every year. And they're cutting taxes for the wealthy and for the rich, perpetuating this myth of
Hmm.
Reaganomics, of trickle down that never was true. It was never going to happen,
No,
and
didn't you write a book about that?
I'm working on it. Yeah, I'm in the final sort of formatting process. It's called Community First Economics, the blueprint for renewal in the Granite State. And the concept is pretty simple.
Mhm.
It's that first identifying, hey, we've been running under this economic system called trickle down. It's not working. It was never going to work.
Is
Sure,
it an intervention?
What the book?
The
Yes,
book.
kind of. And basically saying, explain to people sort of how we got here with housing and with education funding and with healthcare, and how what I'm proposing is not even a radical change. It's actually just going back to the way that we did things for decades and decades and decades before Ronald Reagan.
Yeah. Okay. And do you have any other things that you want your potential voters to know about you personally?
If you want to volunteer, you can go to my website, which is votekiper.org. And just keep an eye out for this book. It should be dropping in the next, hopefully, like 2 weeks or something.
On
Um,
Amazon or
it'll be everywhere. Once it's up,
everywhere?
I'll have it set up so you'll be able to get it basically everywhere. It'll
Okay.
probably take me, yeah, probably within a month. I think we should be good to go. I'm on the kind of final, like, literally, I've been spending like a half an hour trying to figure out the page numbering with the, yeah,
Yeah, it's a whole thing. It's a
yeah,
whole. Ugh.
people have no idea how annoying it is. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, Jon Kiper, thank you for
Hey, thank
coming
you for
on the
having me. This was
show.
great. Yeah, I really
You're
appreciate it.
awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.